So let's say your organization operates outside of the US, but your data, it lives in the American cloud. If that's you, you're caught in a massive global tug of war. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into data sovereignty, what it is, why it's a huge business risk, and most importantly, how you can start taking back control. All right, let's just get right to it with the biggest question of all. You collect the data, you process it, you store it, but is it really, truly yours? For pretty much any organization outside the United States, the answer is, well, it's complicated. Because where your server is physically located, that's not the end of the story anymore. In fact, it's just the beginning. At the very heart of all this is one core principle: data sovereignty. Simply put, it's the idea that data is governed by the laws of the country where it's collected or stored. It's all about control, it's about compliance, and it's about protecting the rights of everyone involved, your company and your customers. Which brings us perfectly into our first section. We need to understand the fundamental why behind this whole issue. It's your data, but way too often, someone else's rules are being applied to it. And this isn't just some IT headache. No, this is a core business concern that touches absolutely everything. We're talking about safeguarding critical national security information, protecting the fundamental privacy of citizens, and even supporting your own country's economic stability. And, of course, there's the big one: making sure you're actually complying with your local laws to avoid some truly massive fines. So this leads us to this central conflict, what I like to call the U.S. provider paradox. It's the fact that the biggest, most powerful, most innovative cloud providers on the planet also happen to present the biggest sovereignty risk. How do you even begin to deal with that? I mean, just look at the numbers here. It's staggering. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, they don't just lead the market. For most of us, they are the market. This means that just saying, oh, we'll avoid US providers isn't a realistic strategy. It's not an option. Their infrastructure is literally the backbone of the modern internet, which makes understanding their legal obligations and your risks absolutely critical. And this brings us to the elephant in the room: the US Cloud Act. This piece of legislation gives U.S. authorities the power to demand data from American companies, and here's the kicker: no matter where in the world that data is physically sitting. It doesn't matter if the server is in Frankfurt or Singapore. That extraterritorial reach is the #1 source of conflict for the rest of the world. And this is where companies get trapped in a legal standoff. It's a classic rock and a hard place. On one side, you've got the U.S. Cloud Act, which could force a provider to hand over data. But on the other side, you've got powerful rules like the EU's GDPR, which strictly forbids sending data to a country like the US unless it has what's called adequate protection. So you can be following the law in one country while breaking it in another, all at the same time. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more complicated, the ground started shifting under everyone's feet. The landmark Schrems II ruling from the EU's top court completely blew up the main legal framework for data transfers, the Privacy Shield. That one decision threw thousands of businesses into total legal chaos, forcing them to scramble for other ways to keep data moving legally. Okay, so that's the legal minefield. It's complex, it's messy, it's daunting. But, and this is a big but, you are not powerless. So let's shift gears from the problem to the solution. This next section is all about your sovereignty toolkit, the things you can use to fight back. Your first line of defense is always going to be legal. So let's look at the contracts and the regulations you can use to build a really strong foundation for protecting your data. The GDPR isn't just a rulebook to follow, it's really become the gold standard for data protection worldwide. To handle data transfers, you can use things like standard contractual clauses, or SCCs. For huge multinational companies, there are binding corporate rules, or BCRs, to manage data flows inside your own corporate family. And more recently, this new transatlantic data privacy framework has popped up to try and fix the mess that Schrems II created. But look, legal agreements are just paper. They only go so far. You need technology to actually enforce those rules on the ground. So let's look at the second half of your toolkit: the practical, hands-on technical defenses that give you real control. These are your frontline defenses. First, encryption, which makes your data completely unreadable to anyone who doesn't have the key. And the most important part, you control the keys, always. Then there's data residency, making sure your data physically stays in a specific country. And of course, strict access controls to limit who can see what. But then there's an especially cool technique called tokenization. So how does this work? It's actually pretty brilliant. Let's say you have a credit card number. Instead of sending that sensitive number across the world to some US-based app, the system swaps it out for a completely useless, non-sensitive token. That token can be used for whatever business process you need, but the real, valuable data, it stays safely locked up in your secure vault, and it never, ever leaves its home country. It's a game changer. Okay, we know the challenges. We've seen the tools in the toolkit. Now it's time to put it all together. This last section is about building a clear, simple roadmap you can actually use to create your own data sovereignty strategy. So here it is, a 4-step plan. Step 1, audit your data. You can't protect what you don't know you have. Map it all out. Step 2, assess your risks. Legal, compliance, vendors, the whole shebang. Step 3, implement the tools we just talked about, both the legal contracts and the technical defenses. And finally, step 4, train your team and keep monitoring. This is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. And at the end of the day, this quote really says it all. This whole effort, it's about so much more than just checking a box for compliance. It is about building and earning the trust of your customers and your partners. And when people know you're a responsible guardian of their data, that's a serious competitive advantage. Now, a huge part of your strategy comes down to a choice about infrastructure. And it's a major trade-off. The big public clouds, they offer incredible scale and lower costs, but you get less control and some real question marks around data residency. A private or hybrid cloud, on the other hand, gives you way more control and guaranteed residency, but it usually comes with a bigger price tag up front. There's no single right answer here. It's a strategic call. And hey, if the whole building trust argument isn't enough to get your board's attention, maybe this number will. 4%. Under GDPR, the maximum fine for messing this up isn't some flat fee. It's up to 4% of your company's entire annual global turnover. That's the kind of number that makes data sovereignty a boardroom issue, not an IT issue. So, all of this leads to one final big question to think about. In our hyper-connected world, with laws always changing and technology always evolving, is true data sovereignty a destination you can finally arrive at, or is it more like a constant battle, one you have to keep fighting every single day through assessment, adaptation, and vigilance? It's a battle worth fighting, because everything from customer trust to the future of your company could depend on it.